Hello everyone. Welcome to this WP Fest 2021. A very good afternoon to one and all, and a warm welcome to this first ever WP Fest Virtual Summit 2021. I am Divya Shukla, your host for the day. Before we begin, dear speakers and the attendees, before we begin, I would like to take a moment to thank you all for your valuable presence, as your enthusiasm to participate and the passionate desire to learn is what that keeps us going to achieve the individual as well as the group objectives. While organizing this first ever WP Fest Online 2021, our prime objective lies in bringing together the digital industry experts from across the world to our audience while facilitating the ease of learning and growing within a virtual environment. During the next few hours, that is the upcoming hours, you will be coming across very insightful learnings through our planned sessions, which in turn will help you to grow to be more productive and smarter. So, the very first session in the line would be on the legal and intellectual property issues for online business owners and developers by the two highly experienced lawyers practicing the cyber laws. This session would throw light on the legal aspects and compliances that every digital business owner or freelancer must know about. These may include that how to select an appropriate brand name, requirements for the brand trademark protection, protection of content against source code under copyright law, and other such related issues. To discuss the legal aspects, we have with us Mr. Rodney D. Ryder, who is the founding partner of Scriptboard, a full service commercial law firm and an author of highly reputed books on cyber law and intellectual property rights. He is also the advisor to the Ministry of Communications and Information Technology and Internet Exchange of India. On the other hand, we have Mr. Ankur Raheja, who is handling both UDRP and INDRP cases and is also a panelist for domain name disputes. He has helped enforcement agencies in cybercrime investigations and is spreading techno-law awareness through his venture CY Law. Dear speakers, I welcome you to this WP Fest 2021. Well, I don't want to take much of your time because I think obviously I need to leave some time for the speakers to speak as well. So a very warm welcome again to each and every one of you. But before we begin, I would like to mention that dear attendees, if you have any of the questions, you can type in your questions in the question answer section of the Zoom panel, and we'll be taking it at the end of the discussion. Apart from this, if somebody needs any clarification or have any suggestion to give on, or you just simply want to say hi, you can always contact us, the panelists and my co-host Saptin Zahir, in the Zoom chat section. So welcome to this WP Fest 2021. Over to Mr. Ankur Raheja and Mr. Rodney Writer for the discussions.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So good afternoon, everyone. So let me just share the presentation. So as you know that today's topic is regarding legal and intellectual property issues for online business owners and developers. So we are sure that as you develop any website or even you are developing any plugins or themes for WordPress, so you must be coming across many legal issues and hassles. So it's an attempt to clarify some legal positions for you and bring some knowledge that will help you in your business or whatever the work you are doing related to the WordPress. So the introduction has already been provided by the host. So coming to the first slide, legal compliances. So I'll request Mr. Rodney Ryder to start with it.
Thank you so much, Ankurji. An honor and a pleasure to be amongst all of you. And of course, a great honor to be invited. and equally a great honor to be on the panel with Ankurji, who is very highly esteemed and regarded. As a first point moving forward, there are a number before we start with what we are going to talk about, let me just flag in 10 or 20 seconds what we are not going to talk about, because there are a lot of legal issues, for example, that a small business or an online business face with regulators, with compliances under the Companies Act, employment issues, tax related issues. And in the interest of time, there is going to be a focus on the specific issues that a business faces online that we as specialists will address. So one of the key issues is on the or key series of issues is on the screen before you. The first is setting up a website. What should you look at in terms of your terms and conditions? We have some general advice for you, and then you must realize that there'll be specific advice depending on the nature of products and services. For example, one of the key rules online, or for that matter for any business, is to clearly display terms and conditions on your website. These terms and conditions should be uh, closer to what, or as close as possible to the industry standard in your particular domain of activity. Second, that terms and conditions must be visible on your website. Um, as a lawyer, I would caution you to put in or draft terms and conditions that you have uh, read yourself. Even if you use standard templates that are available online, or you might want to borrow someone else's terms or conditions, please make sure that you actually read them and that they actually fit to your business. Secondly, that they should be written in simple, clear, and crisp English, because many of us lawyers and developers fall prey, to the temptation of showing off how good we are, or how good our English is. So I think one of the key elements is that it should be short and simple sentences, clearly telling the viewer, the reader, what kind of terms and conditions you have. This will obviously vary as to whether you are delivering services, products, so on and so forth. Then, once you've drafted these terms and conditions and you have them on your website, make sure that they are reviewed. As a business owner, you are responsible for the security and privacy of third party and especially customer data. And this has a number of commercial as well as legal ramifications. For example, under the Indian Information Technology Act, Section 43 and Section 43A in particular, you have to make sure, every business has to make sure that reasonable security practices are in place. And now, since the year 2011, we have rules pursuant to Section 43A, and those must be adhered to and followed by all businesses. So make yourself aware of the present security standards, and make sure that your website or online business is compliant with them. The third point, due diligence while a discharge of duties. So when you are receiving, transmitting, sending messages, hosting content, make sure that you've conducted your due diligence across various parameters. For example, if you are going to host content, are you sure that that content belongs to you? Or are you hosting someone else's content? In which case, are you making the world aware of the fact that this is third party content and you have no ownership rights over it? If you are hosting or running a social media platform or any application where anyone can contribute or post pictures, then you are entitled to, within certain limits, protection as an intermediary. So, do you qualify as an intermediary? Are you entitled to that protection? And what is the protection accorded to the intermediary? Now, theoretically, under law, this is an extremely crucial element in internet law. Who is an intermediary, or what is an intermediary, and the liabilities of an intermediary and the duties uh, vis-a-vis content posted by third parties. And we all know that the role of the intermediary is now about to face severe scrutiny across the world, and particularly in the United States, over the present situation which is developing, has developed, and came to a flashpoint on the 6th of January. So, with this, I'd like to welcome Ankurji's comments on all of this and newer things that he would like to share with us.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Ryder, for a wonderful start. So coming to these points, so first of all, of course, as and when you have a website online, it's quite important to have as Mr. Ryder said, very precise and clear terms and condition. So the purpose is like in a normal, if you are entering into any contract in a normal way, that is an offline, you will always have some agreement in writing. So these terms and condition also act as a contract between you and an internet user who may visit your website for any services or making any purchase upon your website. So having proper terms and condition is foremost requirement for any website. So it may be coupled with, there could be basic terms of use, like if you are having an e-commerce website, then even you can provide things like refund policy, or how you manage your services or goods, like as and when the order is placed, how long you will take to dispatch the order. So the more precise and clear the things are in your terms and conditions, it will be more beneficial for you in case any customer of yours raises any kind of complaint. And further, it can be followed, coupled with privacy policy. Even a privacy policy is a must these days, even in terms of the information technology law. So you should always have these terms, privacy, even a disclaimer, so that it helps you in case of any legal issue that may arise in near future. Secondly, it's about security. So for WordPress website, it has become really very common. On daily basis, you may find that many login attempts are being made by the hackers, or different kind of SQL injection is being tried upon your source codes, or even sometimes whenever it is announced that some plugin has a what you call the any weakness that can be hacked. So attempts, more and more attempts come onto your WordPress website as to, and security issues arise. So even in that case, having proper policies in place will always benefit you in the long run. And as a website owner, you will always be regarded as an intermediary. And in case of any legal issue arising thereof, you need to show due diligence. And this due diligence is not only recognized in India under the Information Technology Act. Even in Bangladesh, we have Information and Communication Technology Act 2006, there also there's a similar provision under Section 79 of the Act. And even in US and even in different countries, there have been different precedents which analyze how due diligent you were in performing your duties as a website owner. So it may include many things. Firstly, to provide a proper terms and condition and privacy policy for the website, and uh, things like what role you had in the dissemination of the information through your website. Was the information just posted like there could be different kind of websites, like if it's just a business website, you are just providing business information, so of course there won't be any such legal issues. But like you are offering people to come and make a guest blog post on your websites, or have opened your post for comments from the users, so then there it is called a third party information. Then in case of anything going wrong, like someone posted something that is infringes someone's trademark, or some uh, it is defamatory to any organization, then the third parties always are can take an action against you. So accordingly, if you are proved to be having following due diligence in performance of your duties, then of course Section 79 of the Act says that you will be exempt from the liabilities. And for that purpose, there are rules and regulation under coupled with the IT Act that you need to follow. So coming to some example as to due diligence when you are having a WordPress website. Uh, Firstly, like even take a simple example, like you are having a website in which you are accepting comments from the users. Now, under WordPress, there is an option to moderate comment. That is, the comments will be published only if you review it. That is, the moderation is on for the comments, right? So now here it's very interesting point that suppose say that your website is having a huge database, you are having maybe 100 posts or more on your website, and maybe in a day there are uh, hundreds of comments they are coming in. So in such a situation, when you are having a very active website, there is always a possibility that some comments are like that are could be called as an objectionable or even defamatory. So in such situation, if the moderation is on, then the liability can be attached to you as well as an intermediary. Means you can be made answerable for any comment because you have intervened in approving the comment. But on the other hand, if the comments are coming in automatically on your website and you it's not in your knowledge and you can show ignorance to any such contents, then of course it will be considered that you were still due diligent. And but as soon as any such thing is brought to the your knowledge as a website owner, then of course as a part of intermediary guidelines you are liable to act upon it. And similarly, like if you are having any guest posts on your websites, so it is also important that you capture proper IP addresses, and even it's better to have email verification for the users so that in case of any legal issues, you can provide information about the users. And similarly, if in case of any hacking of the website, any WordPress website happening, then also there's an organization certain to which you are supposed to provide information as to the IP addresses or from whatever the logs the server is maintaining. I'll request Mr. Ryder to take up further points.
Thank you, Ankurji. I'll pick up from the certain point because the IT Act, the Information Technology Act, is very clear that any cyber security or a cyber incident has to be reported to certain. And certain is quite active, they are quite helpful, but and it's not at all a scary procedure. It's a simple form that has to be filled and sent to certain. So that's as part of our community legal duty. uh, the next point is the use of proprietary materials. And I hinted at it earlier that if you are hosting content of any sort, please make sure that you have um you are either the owner or you have the appropriate permissions in place, because the best of organizations, the most reputed, have on occasion even slipped on this point, using an image and then getting a legal notice from a photographer or someone else. So in terms of copyright, one has to be careful about using someone else's material. As a creator, as a developer, as someone who has their own website or is creative in any manner possible, whether in the video format or in the written format, hosting a blog, uh, please be sure that the minute you create a work, you are granted intellectual property, particularly copyright protection, or to put it more clearly, you have a copyright from the minute you put pen to paper or the minute you type something out. You have a copyright which is a global right from the minute you create without even registration. So the minute you fix something, uh, pen to paper, or record a podcast, or click a photograph, you have intellectual property protection, copyright protection throughout the world. This is a very powerful right that small businesses should be aware of, because this puts you on the same footing as any other business in the world. The the most powerful companies developing the best software, even for them, this right is available. And for you, it is just patents and trademarks that have to go through a registration process. Uh, there has to be a proper disclaimer, a proper legal section talking about third party rights as well as your own um, rights. Um, it is important to preserve an audit trail or retain records for as long as you can. It's a good practice, it's a best practice for us to follow. Ankurji?
Yes, of course. And even about these legal pages, as Mr. Ryder referred, that we may sometimes as a website user pick up templates from different website. So it's very much required that it should be in compliance of the jurisdiction you are in. Like if you are in India and you take up the some terms and conditions from a website that may be some active website in USA, so it may not be totally compliant in relation to the Indian law, because information, even the rules under the Information Technology Act required for you to provide very specific clause under it, under the terms and conditions that you must have, for which you can refer to the intermediary guidelines, rules 2011. There you will find that specific clause. And even as to the retention of records and logs, so the law just requires that you should retain the logs for 90 days, right, under the intermediary guidelines itself. And there are some amendments that have been recommended which will require it to be for 6 months. But even for a reasonable, if you are able to keep it even for longer, like say 1 year or so, so it would be quite appropriate. Because what happens is, in case of any legal issue, if a matter comes before a legal enforcement authority, that is cops, they can always ask you for any logs, even beyond some period. So as long as you are able to comply with it, that you are able to provide the logs or even the IP information of the user. So IP information is always quite relevant, that you whoever is commenting on your website or leaving any guest post. So IP addresses should always be captured, because that is the main identification, technical identification of a user online, that is at any appropriate time, who was using any internet connection through any specific ISP. So that becomes quite important. Now coming to the next part, that is appropriate brand name for a new startup. So it very commonly happens that as soon as we think that we need to start up with some new business idea, so very common words that come in our mind. We may think that we are into like going to start some cafe, so we can name it as King Cafe, or even internet cafe, or very generic terms. So though King Cafe will still work as long as there are no other parties using the same mark, but of course you cannot trademark a term like internet cafe. So even the purpose of the trademark law is, the protection is mainly provided for distinctive terms. Distinctive means that is something you invent. Like there can be example of like Oyo rooms. Oyo rooms, you can always say it's a inventive term, because instead of using hotel rooms, the company opted to use Oyo rooms or even Oyo as their trademark. So before adopting a any name, it's important that you also do some due diligence, that can be in the form of uh, doing a simple research online search as to whether any other business is using the similar mark, or even indication by the availability of domain name is good enough to understand that no one is seriously working upon the any brand name that you are thinking to adopt for the future. So I'll request Mr. Ryder to take up from here.
Thank you, Ankurji. I'll just add to what Ankurji told us. In terms of a trademark or any other intellectual property, please think of it as a property right. So, as a property right, you have to decide whether you want to own a particular brand name or not. And there are tremendous advantages to doing that, because as a brand name owner or a trademark owner, you have a right to use that as your own exclusive business identifier. So, coming to the main point that Ankurji was making, is that if you want to own a business identifier, one of the things that one has to be careful about is it distinctive enough? Am I able to stand out? Not only stand out online, but stand out in the legal sense. Am I able to assert a clear legal right? The due diligence or the search that he mentioned was very similar, or is very similar to a property title search. You go to the trademark registry, you check whether someone else has registered this name or something close to it. Uh, Unlike a real estate property search, this is also uh, something that involves an element of art. By art, I mean real talent, because I might have uh, a name that is similar sounding to another name, but is used for a different category of goods or services, and hence may be accorded protection. Normally, generic words which are in a dictionary, which are available, are not accorded a very high standard of protection unless they have or have developed what is known as secondary meaning. So, for example, to begin with, Naukri.com is not a great trademark. It is a generic word, Naukri for job. But uh, over the years, when it became distinctive enough to mean a particular website, Naukri.com, it was a regarded or got trademark protection. But then its ability or inability to stop other Naukri related sites is still questionable. Take another dictionary word, um, or another word which is a geographical word, the name of a river like Amazon. Now, the benefit of Amazon is that it has no relation to an online business that started with selling books and now possibly sells everything it can. So, the appropriate brand name would also involve a little bit of the art of branding and naming. It's important for you, like, uh, after you've named your business, not to sit back and really, of course, you can sit back and relax, but not to only sit back and relax. You have to police the internet, you have to search, you have to go online, you have to check whether anybody else is using that word in, say, another extension. You have to also check whether a word that you coined is becoming generic. Because remember, nylon, kerosene, gasoline were all coined words. They were not dictionary words. Xerox. Xerox runs, or at least used to run when I joined the bar and joined the profession, a major campaign which told people, do not use uh, our brand name in a generic way. Do not say make Xerox copies. Say make copies. Do not say hand me or pass me those Xeroxes. So if a brand name gets used as a dictionary word, then it can suffer on account of what is known as genericide as well. So a brand owner, like a property owner, like if you own a plot of land somewhere or own an apartment somewhere, you do need to check on it from now and then. If you've rented it out to people or licensed your brand, which is the brand equivalent of renting, then you have to check on what the licensee is doing, because someone could be getting up to a really illegal stuff or tremendous amount of mischief. In an apartment which you rented, it could become say, a hideout for a terrorist or a gang of thieves, and that's what the police tells us, to be alert. So, in short, be alert, police, and protect your trademark. Ankurji?
Yes, of course. And even we have an example on the next slide. So this was a very interesting example that I discovered after an INDRP was filed over the domain name therefers.co.in. So this hotel in Kota was having an active business. This is left side photo is from the pre 2015, where the hotel name was the Raffles, but and they seem to have adopted the name somewhere in 2012 and actively were doing business. But suddenly another hotel chain by the same name from Singapore, that is Raffles Singapore, they came to India and filed numerous complaints against this the Raffles Kota, alleging that they are having a very high reputation in the uh, this industry, hospitality industry, since last many years, and many Indians also from India go and stay in their hotels, and even they had a trademark in India as well. So on behalf of this Raffles Indian Hotel, it can be said that it was a lack of due diligence on their part, because when you are adopting a name and doing such a serious business, and there would have been very high cost involved in printing all the material, even branding that they had done, and for the 3 years they used this name Raffles, and then suddenly they had to rename the hotel. because of the legal action that was brought by the this another chains of hotel from Singapore. Mr. Ryder, your comments on this?
Yes, Ankurji, uh, not doing due diligence. I mean, this is like the online version of, buying some property or investing in a piece of land without checking as to who the owner is. And it might seem a little silly to some people, but there are lots of people who, go ahead uh, and think it's a waste of time to check things out. But I think Ankurji and myself would argue that uh, checking online, checking the trademark database, and now for the last half a decade or more, nearly decade, the Indian trademarks database is available to us online, free of charge, for us to do a trademark search, not only for lawyers, for non-lawyers. Global trademark databases are available. For example, you can check the USPTO trademark search. All of it is online, instantaneous, and absolutely free. So, the lack of due diligence in today's day and age, I know I'm going to sound harsh, but the lack of due diligence might, in some cases, be totally unforgivable. At least as a business owner, one would not be able to forgive themselves if they did not do a simple search at the trademarks registry. And even prior to the trademark registry is to use a regular search engine, whichever is your favorite, and search for that name. And you will get, if you do get results, if you do get conflicting results, then you need to examine the topic deeper. Not doing your background check, not doing your due diligence for a name would, I think, be very sad. And as Ankurji said, in some cases, like the hotel example before you, could be fairly costly as well. So we have uh, a slide before us which just puts some of the basic concepts which you should be aware of. And the reason why Ankurji has put this on the screen before you, it reminds me of one of my old and favorite sayings. Once upon a time, the a French prime minister, uh, Clement Shaw, once famously said, "War is too important to leave to the generals." So I have a corruption of that statement, which says, law, not war, law is too important to leave to the lawyers. So, although I can vouch for the fact that Ankurji is very helpful, and I myself try to devote as much free time to answering queries as possible, but there is no substitute for knowing the basics yourself, which is the objective of our session today. So, one, what do trademarks do? They help us to identify our products, distinguish our products from another company. It helps us to stand out. Over time, as a snowball, a little ball of snow rolls down the mountainside, collecting more and more snow, becoming something gigantic, businesses can become huge. And in the online space, uh, it takes a company much shorter spans of time to acquire significant value. For example, we know that Facebook, Google, Amazon, and the likes acquired their brand value much faster than traditional businesses like, say, Coca-Cola. It's important for us as business owners to understand and take charge of the legal function. Even though you might have very helpful people like Ankurji available at the at on text or over a short call, you can always call him up. but it's important for you to know the basics, when to use what form of intellectual property. So I'll encourage you to think of intellectual property protection. There are many ways to think about it, but one of my favorite pictures is a Swiss Army penknife. So you have a knife there, you have a pair of scissors, you have a saw, you have even the little magnifying glass, you name it, everything within that penknife. So it's important for me to protect my brand name with a trademark, protect the logos I use for products, services through a trademark. My online content, be it in any form, be it literary works in terms of written articles or a blog, be it pictures, be it podcasts or sound recording, all get protected by copyright. Copyright protection is wonderful because it doesn't require even registration through a lawyer. um, if you have something that is truly an invention, you might need a patent. Patents are slightly expensive, and therefore you should know enough of a little bit of basic patent law to do a self evaluation, because it's important for you to know whether your invention qualifies to be a patent. And then once you know that, you can easily get in touch with a patent lawyer to do the drafting, because the drafting of a patent application requires some specialist knowledge. Even for us lawyers, we do not draft patents in all areas. For example, there are specialists who draft software patents. There are specialists again who draft electrical, mechanical engineering patents, biotech and pharma patents. So each requires a thorough scientific and as well as legal knowledge. So, for example, in our firm, we've got a specialist who would be dealing with say electrical patterns, because that may not be my area of specialization. So all of this put together, our plain and simple message is that the more you know and understand about the law, the better, because you are like, all of you, I've entered the field. If you come down to the field, whether it's a cricket field or a football field, you must know the rules of the game. You need not have the loads of knowledge of case law that Ankurji has, but you need to know the basic rules. And I think that even if you look at cricket captains over the years, uh, people who knew the rules, who knew when to apply what law, turned out to be the most strategic and successful captains also. Ankurji?
Yeah, yeah, that was a good explanation for this, the difference that we have between the different intellectual property rights. So, of course, for the trademark and copyrights and even patent to some extent are useful for the WordPress WordPress developers. Though in India, there are the source code can mainly be protected under the copyrights law and not as a patent, because software patents are still not recognized in India. So, though for any original source code or any original work that you have created, as Mr. Ryder said, the copyright by itself on its creation will subsist in you. You need not have a registration, but still, if you go for the registration, it will provide a primary facie proof. Yes, you are the owner of any such source code or any image or any content that you have provided upon your website. And for coming to the trademarks, uh, for getting a trademark registered, you may be required to analyze that where exactly your services or the goods that you are providing will fall. So if you are, say, providing some technology related services like website development through your website, so it will fall under the class 42, that is specifically covers technology. And there are mainly different classes for different kind of services and even for goods. that we have displayed upon the presentation. So when you are applying for a say a mark under class 42, then you need to search in that specific class for any existing trademark for any similarity to see that you are eligible to apply for the same, because the trademark laws say that not only that it should be the same, exactly same, but even the similar trademarks are not allowed as per the law. So if you are adopting something that is already adopted by some other users, so that may disqualify you to get the same registered. But as far as it may be some generic term and there are already numerous users using the same, like say you are having a domain name website services.in, then firstly it won't never qualify as a trademark, and secondly you are free to use it and there's no need for any such protection. So that's why, as Mr. Ryder also referred to the distinctive marks initially. So the more the distinctive mark is, it's better that you go for the trademark registration. And then there are different options to search for the existing trademark. If like you are want to go under class 42, then you may go to, in case of India, you can go to this website, that is ipindia.nic.in. There under trademark, and there's a sub menu under related links. There is an option for called public search. So under public search, you can always provide the word that you are against the word mark. You can provide for the text that you are planning to register as a your mark, and under the class you can provide class 42, and on the next page it will provide a results for you that you can go through and decide whether you want to continue with it. And similarly, for a global search, there are many websites, and Mr. Ryder referred. So there is one WIPO global database search that anyone can go through. Even these days, since last year, it has, since October 2020, it also has an integrated database of Indian trademark. So in one go on this website, you can have a broader view as to if anyone is already using a similar mark anywhere in the world. Though initially you can be concerned more as to Indian jurisdiction, but still in the long run, if you want that, you want to expand to the international market, because mostly when you are developing a plugin or a theme for a WordPress website, it will always be available globally. And even in technology field, its scope is global. So it's better to have a global trademark search. I will request Mr. Ryder to add on it.
Thank you, Ankarji. I think that the only thing I need to add is my previous observation that this is something which you are encouraged to become familiar with. It's a tool. It's a task that it might seem a little daunting at first, because some of you might be hearing this for the very first time, or wondering what this is about. But as a business owner, you are encouraged to know everything you can, or at least in brief, about your business. So for example, you will definitely at one time need a chartered accountant to do your tax filings and your audits, but you should know enough about taxes. You will throughout your life be signing agreements, so you need to know enough about contract law, and this should be taken in that same spirit. While I said earlier that Ankurji is always available, so am I. But the more you know about this yourself, and the more you start enjoying it, no one enjoys a new thing right in the beginning, but the minute you spend a little time and you uh, do your own little searches, you will develop a certain kind of comfort. No one is asking you to become an expert, but people are, I will definitely encourage you to become familiar with such things. So over here we have again rights in the source code or content. And this slide, first of all, it starts by
I'll
repeating.
I'll just object. I think we had already covered copyright part. So if we are, I think, running short of time, so we can
Sure.
shift to the GPL. It will be more important for the users.
Sure. And
Yeah.
thank you, Ankurji, for I think I was looking at the watch myself. So
Yeah.
I think that we need to understand the GPL license structure. We need to understand that free software licenses are now the norm. This does not. This is many people see it as something that's takes away ownership, but actually it enhances the freedom and the sharing of knowledge, while you have the freedom to utilize and distribute copies. So this is an important form of or a differing form of open source licensing. And I think it's very useful for developers to know and understand this. So anything to add to this, or should we ask
I
for
think
questions?
I think as to GPL, I think most of the users must be aware, like under GPL, that is a free license when you are offering anything under the GPL license, like many of the plugins are. So the source is to be available openly. The source is to should be available, and even if you are using some other GPL plugin as your base, then and you make any modifications to it, then as per the GPL licensing terms, you should make available the source code openly to the public so that anyone can look into it. Though in some cases there is a concept of split licensing, like for the GPL part, it would always be an open license, but there could be some copyrighted images used or design elements used in your plugin, or say mainly the theme design elements could be there. So in that case, like you can see a few examples at envato.com, where most of them you must be buying, making purchases of plugins or themes, or even hosting your own developed plugins or themes. So it's quite important to understand the concept of GPL, and you can read more about it online. Yeah. So should we take the next slide, or should we have questions?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please. Um,
Okay, we will take the domain law part in short, brief.
so I think you should go. So you can make it short, and then we can maybe take questions after that.
Okay, okay. So mainly the another aspect, when you are having an online website, you may have issue as to the domain name that you register, because as soon as you register any domain name, and if in case it is similar or identical to an existing trademark, then a trademark owner can always come after you for claiming the domain name. Though as far as it may be, like an example, like a website services.in, then of course it's a generic term, you have complete right to use it. But if you register oyo website.in, then of course the oyo may have issues, though it may be in different class, but still it depends upon the how popular any mark or brand already is. Like oyo people have already spent too much into their branding that they will come after you in any kind of class that you may try to register a trademark. So there could be many issues as to domain name, and many factors that are considered in any domain name dispute. Firstly is related to the similarity with the trademark. Then if you are already making some legitimate use of the domain name, so that no bad faith can be assumed, like if you are offering website services and not exactly violating any third party marks and already made use of the domain name, then you will should be protected. most of the time. Except then sometimes some domainers like register domain name to park it or try to attempt to sell to attempt to a trademark owner, then that may always create an issue. So there have been few examples that we will skip for the time being. Like there was a case for MS Dhoni that Mr. Rodney Ryder represented for the rights in the domain name, and there is even a different .in domain name policy for the .in domain names, and UDRP is mainly for the .com domain names. So let's have question and answers.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable time and presence. And so we'll take up the questions from the audience. The first, we have question from Shubhesh Tiwari. That is how to promote myself as a freelancer in web development field and get deal done. I'm facing this issue from many years. I talk to many clients and show my product web link demo cost. I put normal but deal didn't reach with good end. Please suggest at which point I must work on.
See, I tried to answer this question in the text as well. First of all, I can speak for myself, and I think a little bit for Ankuji as well. We are not totally qualified to answer this question because we are lawyers, and according to the rules of our profession, we are not allowed to promote ourselves, leave alone advise others on self-promotion. But having said that, if you are an expert in any area, and if you develop an expertise and your reputation, things will come to you. I know it sounds cliched. Second point, that if you are approaching a client, studying them, studying their business, and being knowledgeable about your client will always help, because then you can talk to that particular client about their needs, about how you can make things better for them, how you can give them some amount of a little bit of a free advice in the beginning. So for example, if someone comes and tells me, and I know nothing about web promotion, but they tell me they've done a little background search, they know about me, about my clients, about some books I may have written, then it will definitely impress me a little, and I'll know that, well, this person does know their subject and will be able to offer some kind of expertise in this. Having said this, I am not an expert in this field. If there are any legal questions, then we can reach out and answer them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your answer. So, we have one legal question, I think, from Sarfaraz. How to apply for global trademark rather than applying for each country?
So Sarfaraz, there is a system under which you can, it's called the Madrid Protocol, in which you uh, apply first in your home country. Say if your home country is India or the United Kingdom or the United States, you apply here. And once you've made your home country application as your base, on the basis of that, you apply in territories across the world under the Madrid Protocol. The Madrid Protocol itself has some specialization, and in certain countries you need to show use, or you need to be in business in those countries. You need to be aware of that. So for example, in India, you have to give an affidavit and proof that you are in business. In America too, you have to give a proof of business and a certificate. So there are differing variations, but broadly, you can go under the Madrid Protocol.
Okay. Thank you, sir. We definitely have few more questions, but we are already running out of time. So I would suggest, as our attendees have also been asking for your contact details, so if you can please provide contact details in the chat section so they can directly reach out to you for the further questions. And it was indeed an insightful session, but and a very And thanks a lot to both of you for your valuable presence and time. It was a pleasure hosting both of you today. Thank you to all our attendees for listening also, and I hope you had a great time learning. So, with this, we would now move on to our next session, which would be on leveraging the power of Composer in WordPress projects. And to throw light on this curious topic, I would like to welcome our speaker, Mr. Sudhar Muttu. Sudhar has been programming for more than 2 decades and is a polyglot. He has written production code in more than a half dozen programming languages. Sudhar first discovered WordPress in late 2005 while searching for a self hosted blogging platform for his migration away from Blogger. After tinkering with WordPress for his blog, he published his first WordPress plugin in late 2007 and has since then continued to release more than 24 plugins with a total of nearly a million downloads. Sudhar, welcome to the session. Welcome to the WP Fest 2021. Over to you, Mr. Sudhar.
Hey, thanks for that introduction. I didn't realize that you're going to read it out just before my talk. Otherwise, I would have written it very short. Even myself, just listening to that felt a little different. Anyway, good evening, everyone. Thanks for taking time on a Saturday and coming and attending my session. So what I'm going to be talking about today is about how you can use or leverage the power of Composer on WordPress projects. So I might have to share my screen. Let me quickly see if I can share. I'm hoping that you all should be able to see my screen. Okay, so let's get started. So as I said, we're going to be seeing about how we can use or leverage the power of Composer on WordPress. So first of all, let's talk about what is a Composer, right? So people who have been working on PHP projects already use Composer a lot. Basically, Composer is a dependency management tool. It actually allows you to kind of use dependencies on your project. When I say dependency, it could mean a library that your source code depends on. It could be any requirements like the version of PHP or any extension in PHP that is needed and things like that. But mostly Composer is used for managing libraries. And by libraries, I mean individual modules of code that somebody has written, which you can pull in and then use in your projects. Or it could be like you have broken down your project into multiple smaller chunks, and then you can use Composer to pull in the modules that are needed for your project and build them and then use them and things like that. So the libraries that are published to the world, right? So they are available in a site called packagelist.org. It basically is like a repository which kind of lists all the projects that are released for Composer. And there is also when we talk about dependencies, there is also a difference between dependencies and dev dependencies. Basically, like you can have two types of dependencies on your projects. When you include an external library as a dependency, then it means that you're directly using that in your source code and it needs to be available on your production servers. When you include something as a dev dependency, it's basically used for used on libraries or tools that are needed for building your source code. It could be as simple as maybe you want to use PHP-CS for doing a code or static code analyzing of your projects, right? So maybe that is done during development, maybe on an integration server like a CI server, but may not be used on a production system. So in those cases, we would be including PHP-CS as a dev dependency on your project. But if it's something that's going to be directly used in the production server, then they would be included as dependencies. And when we are installing these dependencies through Composer, we could actually specify whether we want to install only the dependencies or the dev dependencies, depending on the platform or the environment in which it's actually getting installed. Okay, so major advantages of using Composer is like you don't need to manually maintain the source code of the libraries that you are using in your projects. You don't need to check them in your repository, or you don't need to write a build script which would automatically keep on pulling those dependencies and including them, those kind of things. And you don't also have to install any of the libraries that you require on your projects globally, right? For instance, if you are running multiple projects on the same server, or maybe multiple websites on the same server, each project or each directory in which the project is located, when you're using Composer, all those dependencies are actually going to be installed within that directory. There is no need for you to install anything globally. So that way you could keep your global configurations as minimal as possible. And if this could be helpful when you use advanced deployment techniques like Docker or something like that, right? And also it makes it very easy for you to handle the dependencies on your project. When I say dependencies, it could also be like, you depend, or your source code depends on a project, and that library might in turn depend on other libraries. So there could be like a lot of these crossover relationships that could happen. So all those dependencies are automatically handled by Composer. You don't need to manually maintain what are all the dependencies of my dependencies, those kind of things. And it is also possible that when you use Composer, you're going to be actually getting the same exact version across all your platforms, across all your servers, right? Maybe while developing, the developer was using a version of a library, but when it went to the staging server, there was a different version. And maybe like when it got deployed to the production, there is a possibility that it might be different version and things like that. But when you're using Composer, it makes it very easy for you to get the same exact set of files, same exact version, including the patch version of a particular library on every server or every machine where you're running Composer. Obviously, the other advantage is also like you get auto loading. So I'll be covering up about auto loading a bit deeper in this session. Basically, what auto loading does is like you don't need to manually include the libraries or files in your source code. For example, if your source code depends on a library, you don't need to do a require or include of those files, of those library files into every class or every file in your source code. Those things are automatically handled by Composer. And also the other advantage is like if the code that you are writing, you want to release it as a library again, then that is also very easy when you are using Composer. Okay. Let me before we talk about like how we can use Composer with WordPress, I will quickly show some demos about or quick commands about Composer to show like how you can actually use it on a plain PHP project first, before we actually get into like how we can use Composer with WordPress. So now I'm going to get out of the presentation and I'm going to open my console. So what I'm going to do now is basically just create a directory. Let's call it Composer library or something like that. And the first command that we would be doing is, so this is basically an empty directory, right? So let's assume that this is the directory of the source. This is the source directory of our new project. Okay. So what I'm going to be basically doing is first start Composer, right? Or init Composer. So we have a command called Composer init, which is basically going to allow us to start using Composer on this particular directory. And I have already installed Composer. That's why like when I run this command, Composer is already available in my local machine. But you might, in case if you have not installed Composer, again, you might have to install it. But I'm not going to be covering about how to install Composer itself on your machines. By default, in most machines, like most operating systems, it comes by default. If not, you might have to just install it. So I'm going to do Composer init, which is going to generate the Composer settings for me. So I'm going to first, the first thing that we need to enter is the package name. So I'm going to just say sudo and test. So Sudhir is like the first part of the name is the namespace. It could be, if you're doing it for a company, it could be your company name or brand name. And the second part is the library, is the actual name of the library. So in this case, I'm going to just say Sudhir, which is going to be the namespace, and /test. And then the next is the description, maybe a test composer file or something like that. Then it's going to ask about the author. So I'm just going to keep the default. And then it's going to ask about the minimum stability. Basically, this talks about like when you start pulling dependencies, right? What should be the stability of those dependencies that we need to pull in? So I'm just going to use the default value there. And next is the package type. So we have different types of packages, like, a library, a project, a meta package, a composer plugin, and things like that. So basically, when we say library, it's something where we would eventually release it as a composer library for others to consume. A project is something which is generally like anything that you are building yourself, right? So let's just call this as a project. And then license. So you could specify the common licenses when you're creating this. Typically in my projects, I use a license called Beer, where you could check about, I mean, if you have not heard about this license, you could check about it in Google. It's a pretty interesting license, and I tend to use this license in most of my projects. And you could also specify the list of dependencies that your project is going to be using interactively in the here itself. But I'm just going to not do it right now, because there is another way by which we can do it, and I'll show you how we can do it there. The same thing for dev dependencies. I'm not going to be specifying any dev dependencies right now. So this is the composer JSON that it has generated. It's going to ask me to confirm whether it's all fine. So when I say fine, the file would be generated. So let's just quickly check if the file is there. Okay, so we can see that the composer.json file has been generated. We can try to open it up in our editor here. So this is the file that it has generated. So let me quickly increase the font size some more. Okay, so this is the file that it has generated. This is basically like saying, like, this is the folder, and inside this folder, this is like the project description and things like that. And as of now, we have not mentioned any dependencies that we are going to be using on this project. So let's do that now. So I told you about the package list website. This is basically the list, the repository or the website which kind of lists all the different libraries that are available through Composer. So we could even search for different libraries. Like, if I search for JSON, like, it's going to list all the libraries that are available, which allows us to do something with JSON. Maybe I want to do a string manipulation on my project, right? Or want to see about what are the string libraries that are available. So if I search for it, it's going to show me all the different libraries that are available. So in this case, let's say that we want to use the string component that comes with Symfony. So this is the library here. So we get a description about this this package, like, and what are the things that it requires, those kind of things. And let's quickly try to install this. So this is the command that we need to run to install this library. So I'm going to try installing that. Yeah, so now what this command does is basically, when I say composer require the package name, it's going to go look up for that particular package. And when it looks up, it will also find out what are all the dependencies for that particular project, for that particular library. And then we'll go and bring in those dependencies as well, and then install all those things inside the vendor directory. So let me show you, because earlier we didn't have this vendor directory, right? But now Composer has created this vendor directory and then has pulled in all the dependencies for my package and the for the dependency that I specified in my composer.json and all the other sub dependencies for it. So if we quickly look into this directory, we can see that these are the other dependencies that this that Composer has pulled in for my package. So, and in addition to that, you might also see that it has also generated another file called composer.log. This composer.log file is basically a machine readable file, which kind of lets Composer know what should be the exact version and where it should download all the files and things like that. So let's quickly look at the composer.json file, and we can see now that Composer has automatically included this, and it basically also specifies what is the version of the package that needs to be installed. There are different special characters that we can specify in front of the version, which basically allows us to play around with the semantic versioning. For example, when we have this caret, it basically means that it will install any version that is compatible with 5.2. So it could be 5.2.1, 5.2.2, and things like that. Or if we want the same exact version, then we could even lock it like something like this. Okay, so based on whatever version constraints that we specify in the composer.json file, those versions will be pulled in and then installed. I'm just going to leave it to the default that it generated. Okay. I also told you about auto loading, right? So let me quickly do a simple thing to show you the power of auto loading. So we said like we wanted to use the Symfony string library, right? Let's go back to that. Let's go back to the documentation of this package. So this package is going to give us different what do you say, like functions for us to do string manipulation, like things like we could create a new Unicode string and then do all sort of things. So let's quickly try to do this. Okay, I'm going to create a new PHP file. Let's call it string test. Okay, and let's just copy whatever is here. Okay, now here is where the auto loading feature is going to be very useful. So you can see here now that this library uses a new class called Unicode string. But right now we have not included that class anywhere, right? So typically if you're not using Composer, then what we would do, like we would find out where this class is getting declared and then do something like, require once, and then path to wherever is this, and then Unicode string.php or something like this, right? And if we use multiple classes, then we have to do this for every class and interface and traits and other things that we are including in our library, in our source code. But with Composer, we don't need to do any of these things. Instead, if we look inside the vendor directory, there is a file called autoload.php. This is automatically generated by Composer, and it would take care of including all the dependencies that we have specified in Composer. So all we need to do is just include this autoload.php in our source code. Once we do that, we don't need to include, or we don't need to manually include any of the other files. Okay, so I'm going to just do require once vendor autoload.php, and then I should be, and let's say, what is this class? This class is, let's import this class, and then we should be good to go. And just creating a Unicode string, let's just print the string, right, to test whether this thing works. Oh, sorry, it's text. Now let's just try to run in command line, like the PHP file. Yeah, and this thing starts working, right? So now you can see like how instead of manually maintaining all the dependencies for our project, we could just use Composer, and then it could automatically take care of all the other things. Similarly, like if we need more dependencies, all we need to do is just specify it here, or we could just use the command Composer require the package name, and then it would automatically start pulling things up. Okay, so let's move on now. I'm going to go back to the slides. Okay, so we saw what is Composer, like we learned about Composer, and I also showed you about Composer. Now we'll see like how we can use Composer together with WordPress. Okay, so till about a couple of years ago, I think like till about last year, WordPress was supporting PHP 5.2 and above. And that was a little difficult because Composer was supported, because namespace was supported only from PHP 5.3, which in turn meant like Composer was supported only above PHP 5.3. So not a lot of projects were able to use Composer, not a lot of WordPress projects were able to use Composer. But with the recent change in which like WordPress is now supporting or officially recommending only PHP 5.6 and above, we could start using Composer like without major issues. And so how we can use WordPress with Composer, right? Now that we've seen what Composer can do, let's see like how we can leverage the power of Composer in our WordPress projects. So here are some scenarios or like some options by which we could use Composer on WordPress projects. One thing is like obviously in every WordPress site, we need to maintain the themes and plugins and things like that, right? Obviously, like different people have different ways by which they do it. Some people directly install it on the production server, but then if you have to like, test, if there is an update and you need to test it, then it becomes a little messy and all that. But one option is like we can install or we can manage different plugins and themes on a WordPress site as dependencies through Composer. So I'll be showing you like how we can do that. And once we start doing it, the exact version of the plugin that's going to be installed would be in your composer.json file. And if you need to install your site on multiple servers, like in your staging environment or in your pre-prod environment, or like maybe if you're using load balancer and you need to install it like multiple servers, every server would actually get the same exact version. And since the plugins and themes, especially the third-party plugins and themes are not your source code, you don't need to maintain, you don't need to check in them into your source code as well. You just need to check in your composer.json file. Another place where you can use Composer is if you're developing a particular theme or plugin, you could use like similar to like how I showed using the string component from Symfony on your PHP file, right? Similarly, if we have to use third-party libraries, maybe like a AWS library or some of the other libraries that are out there in your plugin or theme, then you can pull in them from wherever, from the package list or from other external sources into your plugin or theme directory using Composer. The third use case is like, let's say you have like created a component that you want to use across all your plugins and themes and things like that, right? So in those cases, it makes it very easy for you to share your code across multiple plugins and themes. And the final use case is like you could install entire WordPress itself through Composer. So that's also possible. So we will quickly be going over each of these scenarios and see like how we can use them. Let me do a quick time check. So yeah, okay. So I think we are on time. Moving on. Okay, so as I said, first let's see like how we can use Composer to manage the themes and plugins on your WordPress site. Okay, so like how I showed for Composer, we have package list. Similarly, for WordPress plugins, we have something called WordPress pack list, which basically lists all the plugins as a dependency. So let's quickly see how, let's go to the site and I'll show you like how this thing works. Basically, all the third-party WordPress plugins and themes are mentioned in the WordPress.org plugin repository, right? So if you go to WordPress.org/plugin/jetpack or something like that, so this is the place where all the third-party plugins are listed. And what WordPress package list does is basically provides you a composer interface for all the packages or all the plugins that are listed in the WordPress plugin repository. Okay, and you would be able to install both the plugins and themes in Composer by just getting by just using this WordPress package list. And I'll be showing you how we can do that. Let's go back to the command prompt again. So I have a test WordPress install here. So I've just installed WordPress here. So we would see like how we can maintain that. So let's go to the WP content directory. So inside the WP content directory, we have the plugins, themes, upgrade and uploads directory, like a normal WordPress install. And we would be creating a composer.json file here. So let's do our composer init function here. And let's say this is, let's call it WP composer site or something like that. Okay, WP composer site. So the author, and then this will be a project and license. Let's see the composer.json file that got created for us. So this is inside the WP content directory. Let's make sure we were in the correct. Yeah. Okay, so this is the file that got generated. So now the require section is empty. Now what we're going to do is basically pull in the plugins as a dependency, as a dependency, right? So let's check out WP package list. And basically what we need to do is like, we need to specify one thing first for WordPress or for Composer to acknowledge the WordPress or the WP package list repository, right? So by default, Composer will be pulling in the dependencies from the package list repository, but for us to provide support for WP package list, we need to include a small snippet. So this is the one that we need to do, is basically like, we're going to specify that we're going to add WP package list as a repository. We're going to say it's a composer type and use it only for plugins and themes. And then we can start, and then we also need to specify the install path, because remember like how in the other demo that I showed, when we say composer install, it was installing all these things inside the vendor directory, right? But in WordPress, we want our plugin to be installed inside the plugin directory and our theme to be installed inside the theme directory, right? So we need to specify that here properly. And for that, we need to configure or include this section. So what we have done is basically, where are we here? Yeah. So basically, we have this composer.json file inside our WP content directory. So we just need to remove this. And in fact, we could even remove the MU plugin. Let's just keep things simple. So whenever there is a type WordPress plugin, we want it to be installed inside the plugins directory. Okay. And with that, let's quickly check what's there inside my plugins directory. So there are a couple of plugins that are already there. Let's just maybe install the bbPress plugin as a demo for this. So what I'm going to do now is so So let's just check what is BBPress, right? So this is the plugin. This is the slug for the plugin, and this is available in the WordPress plugin repository. All we need to do now is basically require this WP package list hyphen plugin slash whatever is the plugin name. So let's do that. So I'm going to say composer require. Let me move zoom into a bit. Okay, and then I'm going to say BBPress. So now what Composer will do is basically search for this particular dependency in the WP package list, and then would, okay, there are some issues. It's not able to install it because of, okay, maybe let's just try installing something else, maybe Jetpack. So now what it will do is it will basically go retrieve that plugin, and then we'll install it inside the plugin directory. Okay. Looks like there is some issue here. I think there's some problem with my local machine which is preventing it. But you can see that it is actually going and downloading the zip file. But when it's trying to extract the archive, I think there is some problem which is throwing in my machine. But ideally, what would end up happening is, so it just even got added here. So what would happen is, like inside the plugin, oh, actually it even installed it here. Okay, there's a false alarm. Okay, so basically inside the plugins directory, so we have said that install the WP package list slash BBPress, and this is of type WordPress plugin. So it will be installed inside the plugins directory. So inside the plugins directory, you can see that BBPress got installed and even Jetpack got installed. Okay, so similarly, what we can do is, like, we can list down all the dependencies, all the plugins that we want to install, and maybe the themes, and then specify the exact version. So here it's trying to get the compatible version, but we could even lock it to a very specific version. And in whatever environment, when we just do the command composer install, it will automatically go in and then pull in the third-party plugins and then install them. So now this is good for any third-party plugins, right? But what happens if we have created our own plugin which we want to use on our website, right? In that case, what we need to do is basically have the plugin published somewhere. These days, I think even GitHub actually allows us to publish packages. So we could publish the package in GitHub and then include the repository URL here. And once we have done that, we would be able to install our own plugin, which is not released outside, into our website using the same mechanism. And we could use that to install plugins, themes, anything like that. Okay. So let's now go back to the presentation. So this is what I was saying, like, how we could treat for a WordPress website any plugins or theme as a dependency, and then use Composer to install and manage them. Not only install, but also to manage them. When I say manage them, it basically means that we could specify what is the version, and, like, in case if we have to test an update when a WordPress is updated and things like that, we would be able to use just the composer.json file to manage it. Okay. Now moving on, the next scenario where we could use Composer in WordPress project is when we are creating our own plugin or our own theme and want to leverage third-party libraries, right? So in that case, what we would be doing is basically create a composer.json file inside our plugin folder. And then inside that composer.json file, we can specify all the dependencies that we need and then run the composer.install command. So once that is done, all those dependencies will be downloaded and then stored inside the vendor directory. And then we will also have an autoload.php file, which is automatically generated. And then we could use that to like we just need to include that one file in our in our main plugin file, and after that we'll be able to use any of the classes that are already defined in those dependencies. Okay, and let's say that if we have to release our plugin to the WordPress plugin repository as a as a third party plugin or something like that. One thing, there are a couple of things that people do. One is like people would just couple of options, I would say. One is like people just send them the composer.json file and then ask people to run the command. Or another scenario that you can do is basically include the vendor directory as part of the final zip file that's getting generated. Final zip file that is uploaded to WordPress.repo. So either ways, it should work for you. The next scenario is, let's say that you have written a piece of code and you want to use it across multiple plugins, multiple themes, and things like that, right? So in that case, what you can do is basically package that code into a library and then include that as a dependency either in your plugin or theme. So what I have done is like basically I have written a small module called WP System Info. What this does is basically, there is let's say that you are developing a plugin and then you've released it and somebody is saying that it's not working on their machine or in their website. Then you might have to ask them, what is your WordPress and what is your WordPress version, what is your PHP version, and things like that, right? So that is the system information that you need for you to provide support for them. So what I've done is like basically written a small component which would automatically generate some of the information, like, what is a PHP version, WordPress version, MySQL version, and things like that. So, and I needed this in like a lot of my plugins. So what I've done is like basically created this as a package, as a separate repository, and I have included a composer.json file and then treated this as a library. You can see that the type is library. And now I'll be able to pull in this particular package in my other plugins. So you could see that I'm using this on my email or plugin as well. So if we go to this plugin and go to the composer.json file, you will be able to see that I'm requiring that as a dependency. So when I do this, it would automatically pull in the system info content and then place it inside my vendor directory, and from where I'll be able to use it. Okay. So moving on, the next use case, as I said, was installing entire WordPress itself through Composer. So for that, John Block has created a WordPress fork, or basically it's not a fork of WordPress, but it's a configuration for WordPress, which basically adds a composer.json file, and you'll be able to install WordPress itself as a dependency on your project. So let's say you're creating a website, and then now WordPress is a dependency on that website, or WordPress is a dependency for that website. And then you will be able to follow instructions here and install WordPress itself as a dependency. So all you need to do is basically add, so he would have given you some instructions similar to like how we added WP package list as a repository in our composer.json file. We need to add some details, and once we are done, we will be able to install WordPress itself through Composer. I don't generally use this, but because like I typically try to keep WordPress separate from my plugins and themes. But in cases where you want to set up the entire WordPress site using Composer itself, then you can make use of this. So there are some more additional things that you can try. Things like, let's say you are setting up auto deployment, and maybe auto deployment could be in your CI/CD server, or it could be as I said earlier, like you have a load balancer, and then you have like a lot of production servers where you need to set up deployments automatically and things like that. So in those places, it would make sense for you to use, or it makes sense for you to install even WordPress automatically through Composer. And there is also a small snippet that is available for you so that you can use that to avoid naming collusion. So when could a naming collusion happen? So let's say that you want to use the AWS library, right? So you have created a plugin, and then in your plugin, you are including AWS library as a dependency, right? And that's going to be available in your vendor directory. But let's assume that whoever is installing your plugin in their website also have another plugin which also depends on AWS. Now, when those two plugins are going to be activated, there's going to be a naming collusion that's going to happen. So in those cases, what you can do, so basically, I've given the link in the presentation. There is a tool called PHP Scoper. What it does is like it takes up a particular library, and then it can prefix all the namespace with a particular namespace that you are giving, so that automatically like basically this is the command, you can add a prefix to all the namespaces, and once you do that, you could avoid all these naming pollution that could happen if the website in which you are installing your plugin also has another plugin or theme which is using the same library. Okay. Another thing that you could also do, which I've not fully covered in this presentation, is similar to how NPM has different scripts. Composer also has something called composer scripts, where you can specify a list of commands that needs to be run, and then you could run them by using composer run and whatever the name of the script that you have specified. This is very similar to how NPM scripts work. And this might be useful in scenarios where, let's say that after you install a particular library or dependency, you want some commands to be run for it to work or things like that, right? So in those cases, you could specify those commands and then automatically run them. So that's also something that's possible. All right. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. Let me just do a quick time check. I think we are on time. So once again, thanks everyone. In case if you have any questions, we can do those now.
Yeah. Thank you, Siddharth. Thank you for your valuable information, and thank you for your presence as well here. So, without any delay, I would just take up questions from audience. So, the first question we have is from Shubhesh Tiwari, that how to install Composer on any server, let's say Linux hosting.
Okay, so I believe okay, any pretty much any Linux flavor, right? So they would have some type of package manager. If you're using Ubuntu, then you have apt-get, and similarly for other things you have like other flavors of Linux, you would have different package managers. So you can use those to install Composer. So that's one option. Another option is like there is also a single executable that is available for you. You could download that and then put it in your path and then start running it. So that is also possible. Typically, people generally try to install Composer using that particular operating system's package manager. For instance, in Mac, I typically use Brew or something like that to install Composer. But in Linux server, I'm pretty sure like pretty much all flavors of Linux, whatever is the package manager that is available, should provide you an option to install Composer. I know for a fact that in Ubuntu you can use apt-get, and I think in CentOS you can use Yum or something like that. So that should allow you to use Composer or install Composer, and it should be like very straightforward. And in case if you don't have admin access to install, as I said, like you could also download the executable and put it in your path and then run it.
Okay. So we'll take up the next question from Pavan Satyam. He says, why WordPress site loads very slow? How to make it load faster?
Hi, Pavan. There are multiple things that you can do to make your site load faster, but I'm not sure if Composer would actually help you in doing that. some of the things that comes up on top of my mind is like, check out like how many plugins you're using, what is the theme that you're using, and are there any performance issues on any of the plugins that you've installed and things like that. So there could be variety of reasons why a WordPress site could be slow. So I think you might have to debug it based on that. But I'm not sure like if this is directly related to Composer as such, but as I said, like, you would find a lot of resources that would allow you to optimize your site. But the first thing that I would recommend you looking at is like the number of plugins and themes that you have, and see if there are any performance optimizations that are needed by those plugins and themes.
So we'll take up the next question in the line, that is from Aurovrata. When using Composer to install WordPress plugin, is it possible to configure Composer in plugin extension to install another WordPress plugin on which it depends? For example, I write a plugin extension for contact form 7. Can I configure Composer to install CF7 plugin when a user installs my extension on a site which does not have the form plugin pre-installed?
Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, basically when a particular plugin is installed, you also want another plugin to be installed, right? So there are two ways by which we can do this. One is include that plugin. Let's say in this case, the contact form 7 plugin as a dependency on your plugin. Okay, but the problem here is like the composer.json file is going to be in the WP content directory, right? So what would end up happening is like you would get a version of plugin which is installed inside your vendor directory. So instead, so that could be a little problematic. So one thing that you can do is there is something called post install command. So in post install, what you can do is basically let the original composer.json file know that you need a dependency. So once the plugin is installed, you could print a message which says like, this plugin requires contact form 7 or something like that. But if your plugin is also maintained in a composer.json file, it's not possible for you to install another plugin, but you can only like, use the post hook to specify a message, or like, do something like that, because it has to be specified inside the main composer.json. You could install third-party dependencies inside your plugin directory, but not at WordPress level.
Cool. So the next question is again from Pavan Satyam. I want to add feature like website modifying according to customer input location. How is this possible?
Okay. I am not really sure if I fully understand that question, but I think this looks like a custom functionality that you might have to build. And you're saying customer input location. I'm assuming you meant the location of your users. So maybe there could be some maybe there could be some libraries that allow you to find out what is the geographical location of your user, and you might have to use that. But as such, I'm not really sure like how we can do that.
Okay, so we again have another question from him. That is, for a startup, how much do you suggest WordPress for making website? Any other alternatives?
Again, I mean, there's like so many other things, right? When you say startup, I would say like if you have a requirement where you need to have a lot of content, or you need to maintain a lot of content, I would definitely suggest WordPress. But apart from content, then it would depend on your requirement, because without knowing what is your requirement, it might be very hard to give a very generalized statement for a startup, because a startup could mean anything, right? It could mean like an e-commerce startup, it could mean just like a learning management system, it could mean anything. So I feel it would be difficult to give a generalized solution. But if you're looking for something that needs to maintain a lot of content, then I would definitely suggest WordPress.
Good. Next question is from Shubhesh Tiwari. How much you will recommend WordPress CMS for making website for my clients, since theme installation is very easy, But customizing according to the client requirement is not easy at first point. You need to understand the flow of the theme, which is time consuming. At the other side, several frameworks are available. Laravel Symphony, also plain PHP. Can you please suggest?
Um, Again, I would say it again depends on case by case basis, right? It's very difficult to make like a very generic statement. But what I have seen in my experience so far is WordPress as such is very, very customizable, especially like, you could not just install theme, you could also write your own theme. You could also write your own plugins to extend any aspect of WordPress. So I would still say it would make sense to use WordPress, but I'm assuming in this case you're talking about like installing a third-party theme and then trying to customize it. I would suggest looking for a theme that is customizable. When I say customizable, not just from the UI options, but more from the extensibility using hooks and uh, filters. So I would suggest like either you look for a theme that does that or write your own theme. But if you're just looking at installing a theme and then customizing it, I don't know, like in that case, maybe if you're comfortable with other frameworks, you might be able to use that. If uh, but if you have like good code base, then I would suggest using WordPress would make more sense there. Again, like as I said, like it's very difficult to make a generic statement. If there is any specific requirement, then we could like talk about it.
Okay, we have one more question, guys. If you have any other questions, you can type it in the Q&A section. But now we have a question like, wanted to learn the WordPress and use it for my website. Any good sites we can learn from scratch, as I am totally new to the development?
Okay, so I'm of the opinion that the best way to learn something is to just like tweak it, like install it, get heads on into it, and then start playing around with getting your hands dirty. So, and that's how I learned it, and probably like that worked for me. So I would suggest doing the same thing, like just get a free, I mean just get a very cheap hosting, install WordPress, or maybe even install WordPress on your machine, local machine, and then just start trying it out. I think that's the best way to learn. Again, I'm not sure if you want to learn WordPress as as an end user or as a developer. If you want to learn WordPress as a end user, there are like a lot of tutorials that talks about like how you can use WordPress and like things like that. But I'm assuming you would probably want to learn how to develop WordPress. In that case, what I would suggest is, like as I said, install WordPress, like try creating a plugin for a very small feature, and especially learn about hooks and filters. That's like the major thing. Like once you get your head wrapped around hooks and filters, most of the things would be possible for you to start playing around in WordPress.
Okay, so I think we are done with the question answers. No more, no more questions now. So thank you, Sudha. Thank you for being here, for your valuable presence and the insightful information you shared with us. Uh, and thanks to the audience also for being a patient audience and listening throughout. So now we have the next session that is on how to increase e-commerce conversions. So for this, I would like to invite Mr. Jay Podyal to take over. So over to you, Mr. Jay.
Yeah, hi. I hope you can hear me. So today, this is the last session of this. Today's day. So it is fantastic session, right? And I also want to hear, how to increase e-commerce conversion. As we have seen in this pandemic, I mean, there is so much e-commerce companies coming in, and they are trying their luck to sell products and things, right? So today we have Mr. Toffer with us, like who will talk about how to increase e-commerce conversion, and he is senior WordPress architect with Camber Creative, and he has also experience of companies like BigCommerce. I mean, 2 years, 7 months. I mean, he is, I know, right person to talk about e-commerce conversion because of his experience, right? And as I have researched about you, Topher, and I have found that you started your coding in PHP in way back 1998, and 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 in that time, uh, I was learning, Perl for a chat project. So just I want to know how it all started with you. Yeah, over to you.
Oh, so you want to hear some backstory first?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, boy, I was in college and we had just gotten access to the World Wide Web and we were using a text browser called Lynx on a
Hmm.
mainframe computer. And
Yes,
a friend
yes.
came to me and said, "Look, I made this thing." And he showed me a web page. I said, "Wow, that's cool. I could never learn to do that." And he said, "Oh, sure you could. Here, let me show you." And at that time, it was about 1994. There were only about 25 WordPress or HTML tags. So I learned all of HTML in about an hour, and
Right.
that was really fun. I loved doing it, and so I did it for fun for a couple of years, and then people started giving me money to have this fun,
Wow.
and that was great. And then near the end of the 90s, a friend came to me and said, "I need to build a website, but I need PHP." And I said,
Hmm.
"Well, I'll learn PHP."
Uh-huh.
So I went home that night and I learned a whole bunch of PHP and built a terrible website. I'm
Okay.
glad it's not there anymore. It was very insecure. Um, but that's how I got into PHP and MySQL and HTML and all of that. And
Okay.
it was brand new PHP 3.
Hmm.
Right
Yeah,
before that was PHP 2, excuse me, FI or something like that.
yeah. Hmm.
And my friends were
Right,
using Perl.
right, right. So, like, let's talk about e-commerce conversion. Like,
Yes.
I mean, what do you think? I mean, what kind of mistakes newbies make generally
Ah,
while designing,
boy.
landing page or product description, etc.
Yeah, boy, what kind of new mistakes do newbies make? Um, they don't talk to their customers enough.
Uh-huh.
The newbies should be in, especially newbies, because your customer base can be very small. I mean, if you're starting a brand new store,
Hmm.
then there's a time when you only have 4 customers, and you should know their names and and be able to talk to them. I have a great big presentation with slides and stuff. Would you like to see it?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
All right. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Let's see who can share. No, no, that's not what I want. I might have to reconnect to the conference. Just a second here.
Okay.
Yep, I have to disconnect and I'll reconnect in just a second. Okay.
Okay, okay. No problem, no problem.
All right. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to share my screen again. All right. Well, there we go.
Yeah,
So let's talk
fantastic.
about, yeah. So we're going to talk about how to increase e-commerce conversions.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to forget to mention that I work on BigCommerce for WordPress, and if you want to follow that on Twitter, you can follow that BC for WP hashtag. And you can always find me on Twitter at Topher1Kenobi. So we're going to talk about e-commerce conversion rates, what they are, and how to calculate them, how to monitor them long term, how to get more conversion rates, and then we'll do some Q&A at the end. So what is a conversion? Most people think of it as a sale, but it's not just a sale. A conversion is anything you decide that it is, any goal that you set. So it could be a sale, but it could be a user adding a product to their cart, or adding an item to their wish list, or email signups. Anything you want to track. And of course, at the beginning, when you first set up your store, sales is the obvious thing you want to track. But as your store gets bigger, you may think, well, what if we changed our store slightly to do some new thing? Well, you want to measure that to find out if that's helpful or not. And so that would be a new conversion. And so as your store grows, you end up with quite a list of conversions. And there are a number of things that you'll be watching. So especially if you use Google Analytics and you can set up conversion metrics, you'll end up with quite a long list of things that you're watching. And that's good. That's the way it should be. Let's see here. So a conversion rate is the percentage of website visitors who purchased something from your online store or met any other goal in a set period of time. And average e-commerce conversion rates are 1 to 2%. This blew my mind when I first got into e-commerce. I thought, well, wouldn't you want 100%? Don't you want everyone to buy? Or at least half? But apparently 1 to 2% is good. That's what sells. And even if you're doing everything right, you can still expect to win a sale around 2% of the time. So 2% plus should be the baseline goal for your online store. If you're getting 1%, then you can push that. You can reach for more and go for that 2%. And of course, I mean, obviously much more is better, but don't lose any sleep if you're not getting more than 2%. So to calculate your conversion rate, you divide the number of visitors by the number of conversions to get a percentage. So for example, if your online store is getting 5,000 visitors and 50 conversions for a set period, that means your store's conversion rate is 1%. So it's visitors divided by the number of conversions. So it doesn't make any sense to set goals and not measure them, because then you don't know how you're doing. So there's a variety of ways to get this done. Heat maps are really, really cool technology. They keep track of where the mouse goes on a web page. So the screenshot on the right is from an app called Hotjar. The section with the red, yellow, and green show areas that everybody sees. And so we talk about things being above the fold. Well, that's the fold, that white line there at the bottom. When the page loads, everybody sees the top always. That's just the way it works. And fewer people see the bottom because fewer people scroll. The section on the left shows where the mouse actually goes. And as you can see, there's one very hot spot up there by the logo. I don't even know what's under there. It looks like some kind of button, but whatever it is, it's very, very popular. And so they want to be very careful with that piece of property. They don't want to move it or change it or make it more difficult to use, and do whatever they can to make it easier to use, because that's the thing people are looking for, whatever it is. excuse me. You also want to find out who your customers are. Quantcast Measure is another app. And if you, I don't know if you can see very well in the screenshots, I can get my slides to you at the end. Quantcast can figure out how old people are, how much money they make, how much education they have, their ethnicity, their gender, all of that stuff. And that can be extremely useful for deciding what products you're going to sell or how much you might charge for them or where to market. Um, if most of your visitors are from a certain city, then maybe you want to put all your banners in that city so that they see them. Or maybe you want to put them in another city so that those people learn about your store and you start getting traffic from another city as well. Those are all kinds of decisions you can make if you have this data. So you really, really want to understand who your customers are. Then figure out where they're going and where they're coming from. Google Analytics is classic. This is a great tool. You can figure out where they're coming from, how they found your site, if they're new or not, what browser and OS they're using, how many visitors converted, because you can set up conversion tests in Google Analytics, and how long they stay on your site. And I want to talk for a minute about the browser and OS thing, because I recently learned something very, very surprising. There was a person who was going to go live with their store, but it wasn't working in Safari. And she didn't want to go live until it worked in Safari. And I thought, that's odd. Safari's kind of a fringe browser. I mean, as long as Chrome and Firefox are working, then why would you hesitate? And she said that 50% of her sales came from Safari. And I thought, that's pretty incredible. And then I realized that it was all Safari for iOS, mobile. iPhones. People were buying on their iPhones. Half of her sales came from an iPhone. Not just mobile, iPhone specifically. So if you throw in Android, I'll bet it was easy 75% of her traffic was mobile. And once you know that, that dramatically changes how you present your content. If you know that most people shopping there are mobile, then you need to be building for mobile. And so that's the kind of thing that something like Google Analytics can tell you. Then you find out what people want. Most e-commerce tools like BigCommerce, WooCommerce, Shopify, whatever, have built-in analytics, and they can tell you things that something external like Google can't tell you. So they can tell you what people buy the most, what people buy the least, what people return the most, and what people search for. And again, once you know this data, you can make all kinds of decisions with it. If people are returning a certain thing very often, you can figure out if you're presenting it wrong and they think they're getting something else, or if the thing they're buying is actually faulty. All kinds of stuff like that. So leverage the built-in tools that your platform has. So then what do you do? These are some things that you can do to increase conversions. Offer free shipping. This is a no-brainer. Amazon does it, and so everybody expects it. And the question is always, well, shipping is expensive. How can I afford to pay for that? You raise the price of the thing you're selling, and then it gets absorbed. That's the way Amazon did it, and nobody blinked. Of course, you need to do it over time. If you suddenly double the price of all your products, people are going to notice. But you slowly raise the prices, and people won't notice, and suddenly you have a free shipping, and everybody loves you. So I can't stress it enough. You need to be offering free shipping. Provide limited time coupon codes. This is a twofer right here. Coupon codes are great. People love coupons because they like getting a deal. However, if it's just a regular coupon, people are lazy. It's going to sit in their email box and they're never going to act on it. If it's a limited time, they're going to jump on it. If you say you have 24 hours to use this coupon, or it must be used within 2 weeks or only during Diwali or whatever, um, people will move on it because they don't want to lose that coupon. So there's two parts there. The coupon code is great, but the limited time is important. Tweak and test your e-commerce checkout process. The fewer options available, the higher the conversion rate. This means things like fewer payment gateways and fewer shipping options. It seems a little counterintuitive. You may want to offer people more choice. Maybe if I offer people more payment gateways, then I will get more customers. But what actually ends up happening is people get decision paralysis. They can't decide what gateway do I use, which one is better, and they walk away and don't buy at all. Same with shipping options. Use the fewest number possible, and then if possible, consider skipping the cart and go directly to checkout. This really only works if you're only selling one product. But for any store that is selling just one product, you don't need a cart at all. When they click buy, send them to the checkout. It skips the whole thing, and you will get more conversions. Use cart abandonment software. This is a thing where if you put something in your cart and you put in your email address to start the process of buying, but then you stop for some reason. Maybe your kid spills water all over the floor, or somebody's at the door, or whatever. People walk away and they forget. Cart abandonment software will email them and say, "Hey there, we noticed you put this in your cart, and if you click this link, we'll put it right back in your cart for you, and you can continue right where you left off." And often there's a discount added with it. We'll say, we noticed you walked away. If you come back, we'll give you 10% off. This actually is so common that there are people that game that system. They will deliberately put something in their cart and then leave it, anticipating a discount coming in their email. So that's up to you whether you want to play that game or not. But it works. People tend to buy more. When I was working with Easy Digital Downloads, we implemented abandoned cart software, and sales went way up. They really work. So it's available for pretty much every platform. WooCommerce, BigCommerce, Shopify. It's a plugin for Woo. It's built in by default in BigCommerce. So it's there. You just need to use it. Let customers check out as guests. Again, this is anything that slows down the checkout process, slows conversion rate. So if all they have to do is put in their email address and move on, then they don't have to type in their name and their address and all that kind of stuff. So this is one more thing to speed up the checkout process. Have a great product return policy. Vendors often don't want returns, and so they make returns difficult. And that's counterintuitive. If people feel like they cannot return or it's difficult, they're less likely to buy in the first place because they're afraid. They're afraid that they'll get this thing and they'll be stuck with it. And even if they can do returns and it's a headache, they don't want to mess with it. They want it to be super, super easy. And so if you make it easy to return, people tend to buy. And maybe you will get more returns, but you will get even more sales of people who kept it because they felt confident in buying. And that's great. Here in the US with Amazon for returns, of course, they don't have stores. You have to mail stuff back. So they made an agreement with several physical stores. There's a company called Kohl's where you can just walk in and say, "I bought this from Amazon and I want to return it," and they'll take it and give you cash, and you're done. That's it. So they made it super, super simple, even though they didn't have physical storefronts. So make it easy, make it visible, and give people confidence that if they don't like the thing they're buying, they can give it back. Make your add to cart and checkout buttons prevalent. This seems like a no-brainer. Again, why would you not want to do this? But often when web developers are building the store, they know where that button is. Deep in their heart, they dream about it at night because they're working on this website. But it's not necessarily intuitive to everyone else. And so once you're done with your site, take someone who's never seen it before and sit them down in front of it and say, add something to the cart. And if they struggle, then you need to change it. If it's super simple, then you did it right. But a frustrated shopper will probably just leave and certainly never come back. So make sure that add to cart and checkout system are smooth and easy to use. So here's my summary. Streamline your process. Remove as many obstacles as you can. Fewer payment gateways, fewer shipping options. Checkout as guest. All of that stuff. Just trim everything you can and go as quickly as possible from clicking I want this product to here's my money. Make your entire checkout process as easy to use as possible. This is again streamlining, making it faster, simpler. People like fast and simple. And lastly, make people feel like they're getting a great deal on your site, even if they're paying the same as everywhere else. If they feel like they're getting a deal, they'll be back because people like a deal. Most of the ideas in this slide deck came from a blog post here. There's a URL there at bigcommerce.com /blog/conversion rate optimization. I want to do a pitch here real quick for the BigCommerce blog. It is not about the BigCommerce product. It is about e-commerce in general and is applicable no matter what platform you're using. So I highly recommend you check out the BigCommerce blog. It will help you be a better e-commerce person, salesman, developer, whatever, no matter what platform you use. You can contact me at topher@DeRosia.com or at Topher1Kenobi on Twitter. Feel free to ask me all the questions you want. I'm around all the time. And that is the end of my talk. And so I'm excited to hear any questions that you may have.
Yeah, we have some questions from the audience. Let me ask you. Can you see question and answer bar?
I can, yes.
Yeah. Let me take. First question is from Orota Vineet, I guess. When you say 1-2% is the stat including returning visitors, many users on e-com site will check the product multiple times over a period of several days, actually, and before finally making purchase. So these are included as single or multiple visits in the stat.
They would be multiple visits, but as a sale goes, a single conversion. So this is actually a great conversion metric to study. Mm-hmm. Figure out on average how many times people visit your site before buying. Mm-hmm. And once you know that, especially like if you can track individual people, like if they're logged in or something, then if you know that on average the third visit is the buy, then you can pop up a coupon using Opt-in Monster or something on that third visit and say, hey, I noticed you've been checking out this product a lot. Would you like a coupon? Mm-hmm. So that's if you can know individual people like that, that's a great way to get them to buy.
Mm-hmm. Are those discount pop-ups are not frustrating to the user? For some user, discount pop-ups?
They can be. It depends on how you do it. If you give them only one ever, and it's for a product they've been looking at, they're probably going to be excited to have it.
Because I have seen in some website, I mean, in every page after 10 seconds, they show discount pop-ups. They are really frustrating.
Oh. Yeah, see, that would be a bad way.
and based on your experience, how much discount should we give I mean 10%, 15%, or 20% to grab that, bouncing
Yeah.
customer.
I don't know that I can tell you that. That's something you would have to test. And you can do A/B tests
Right.
and offer different percentages at different times and see if that changes the volume. So if you offer a 10% coupon and get 100% sales, then you want to do 10%. But if you only get 5% more sales, but a 30% coupon gets you 50% more sales, well then you go with the bigger one.
Right, right. And we have another question from anonymous attendee. And tools like analytics tools like Hotjar and Quantcast measure, won't these make websites slower?
They can, yes. And so you have to weigh the value against
Yes, yes,
the
yes.
slower. So I would say you don't ever want to run these all of the time. So maybe turn it on for a week and see what you learn, or maybe just one day, or only certain parts of a day. But make those deliberate tests so you can say, I tested this data on this date and this is the result I got, and then try it again on a different date. So you wouldn't necessarily run it during high traffic times, holidays and things like that. Unless you need that data. You really have to weigh the value of the data
Exactly,
against
exactly,
the
exactly.
impact.
And see, sometimes if you put even basic tools like Google Analytics, it will also slow down your site in some way.
Sure.
Right,
Yep.
right. So you need to do some compromise on some way. When you
Right.
are, ill, then you have to take vaccination, you have to take medicines, and those have some side effects.
Yep.
So we have another question from Aurovrata. Is Quantcast Analytics able to determine visitor metrics in real time as they are browsing the website?
I don't know that, and I'm sorry. I'll bet you their website will tell you.
Right, right. And we have another question from Shubham Gupta. Being an affiliate marketeer, how to pitch new users regarding exclusive deals?
Oh, being affiliate marketing, how to pitch new users.
And
Boy.
Facebook ads can work for pitching new users. Absolutely, like any kind of ads will do.
Yeah. Um, so let me talk about Facebook ads for a moment.
Mhm.
We have found that uh well, okay, so when Google ads came out and then Facebook ads came out, they were quite simple to use.
Mhm.
Um Anyone who had an account could just set up some ads and they just started working. Um but over the last few years, they've become a little more difficult to set up. They're more complicated, so you have to study more, you have to learn more.
Yep.
And both Google and Facebook have started paying less.
Mhm.
And so their value goes down. And so what people are finding now in the last several years is that content marketing works as well or better. So that's one of the ways, that's one of the reasons why WordPress shines as an e-commerce platform, with WooCommerce and then BigCommerce for WordPress. It allows you to create great content in addition to your products. So you have blog posts, you have user reviews, all that kind of stuff. And then people find it via Google.
Mhm.
They just do a regular old Google search. I want to learn more
Mhm.
about such and such a backpack. And they come to your site, which has a 4-page review about someone who took this backpack on a camping trip and
Mhm.
lost it in a river and it turned out great. And
Yeah.
uh, so yes, ads work, but in addition, I would strongly recommend you get into content marketing where you have really good blog posts, really good photos, something far beyond just a product description,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah, if you can sell organically, there is nothing like it. I mean, no CAC, no customer acquisition cost. I mean, if you are able to sell organically, right, through your
Yeah.
content, right?
Yep.
And we have another question from Shubham Tiwari, such a long question. I'm reading out for audience. Like Amazon, Flipkart, these giants of e-commerce markets are so strong in the market and occupy the complete online e-commerce marketplace. But how small or growing or medium e-commerce companies do their business efficiently and survive in the market with these giants? Please suggest.
Right. Yeah. So some of the best ways are to provide very personal I don't know, support, interactions. Amazon is a robot,
Hmm.
you know? You
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
call Amazon and talk to a customer support person.
Mm-hmm.
You go through documentation and hope you can find your answer. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you can provide a personal touch,
Mm-hmm.
and so say you're selling something on your site and people have a question, maybe they pop up a little chat window and they talk to you personally, or they can call you, or they can email you and you email them back quickly and you say, "Hi, I'm a real person, and I can help you." Um, People love that, especially people who are sick and tired of dealing with robots at, at places like Amazon. Um, so uh, stay small if you can, stay personal. Even if you have to hire extra staff, like when you get large and you have, thousands and thousands of customers, um, hire more staff to maintain that personal touch. And it will help a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to add to your points, see, I can say, I mean, even with the existence of these companies like Amazon, Flipkart, and some other companies, still you can make in e-commerce, right? Because as you said, like you can give personal touch. Like if I give you some example, suppose you are selling product of gardening,
Hmm.
right? And you can be, you can be expert of gardening, right? And you can provide your consultancy to the buyer, right? In this case, Amazon
Yes.
cannot provide that. Suppose you are cosmetic brand and you can have some face behind your brand, right? And that face
Yep.
can talk to your customer, right? So I mean, you are rightly said, I mean, these are bots, and human wants personal connection. And Facebook also did some research. It says, like, the new thing is conversational commerce, right? When you
Yep.
talk to the buyer on phone, on WhatsApp, on chat, they tend to buy more, right?
Yes.
And this way they will buy again and again and again. And
Yep.
Flipkart and Amazon kind of companies cannot provide that, because they cannot scale to such level actually, right? So right, coming to next question from again
Oh,
Auravrata.
you know what? I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I
yeah,
had a couple more things
yeah, please.
that I thought of. Um, One is I mentioned content marketing earlier.
Hmm.
Set yourself up as an expert. So if you're selling gardening tools, blog about gardening
Exactly.
and be the man, the one that everybody needs to go learn from, and they will buy from you. And the other is you can sell across multiple platforms all at the same time. BigCommerce is particularly excellent at this. If you have a BigCommerce store and you have a product, you can also push that product to Amazon and sell it there, and also Facebook, and also Instagram, and also your WordPress site. So you could sell one product across all of those platforms and meet people where they are. And so if you get somebody who does want to buy from the Amazon robot, they still find your product there. But if they want that personal touch, they come to your website and find your product there. Um, so um, it's called multi-channel. So selling across multiple channels is really good stuff.
Yeah.
All right, what's the next one?
Next one is from Auravrata. In your experience, how long does it take for an e-commerce website to start generating break-even revenue? Is there any ballpark time scale you can give?
Yeah, I don't think I can. It really varies on what you're selling and who you're selling it to and whether they're ready to buy and all of that kind of stuff. Um, like if you walked out in the street right now and we're selling COVID vaccines, I'll bet you could get break even revenue in about 10 minutes. But
Mhm.
if you walk out selling something nobody wants, then
Uh-huh.
it's not going to work. Yeah, that I don't think that's a metric that you can really ballpark. But it's something you can learn ahead of time with testing. If you
Mhm.
do good user testing,
Mhm.
ask people if I
Uh-huh.
sold if I sold this product for this much money, would you buy it? And if people are excited about it, then your chances are much better. But if people
Mhm.
say, I don't care,
Mhm.
then you've learned ahead of time before you build the thing
Mhm.
and wasted money, whether or not
Mhm.
it's going to go.
Yeah, just to add some points, like see, no one can give these calculations, right? But for this, you have to make some plans. If you are
Mm-hmm.
going to start an e-commerce venture, you have to see from where you are going to start, from your home itself, or you are to, or you are going to lease your office, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if you are going to lease your office, office rent also add on, right? If you are going to hire some people to attend call, or to support, you know expenses can be added, right? If you are playing small, in my experience, it all depends upon how you play with ads. And to break even revenue, I think if you are alone or having one or two guys who are working work from home, you can break even your revenue, I think, less than 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
This is my experience, right? Yes, if you are having fancy office, receptionist in your office, and you are team of developer, then there's a different game. Then it can take
Yeah.
1 year, 2 year, right? Yes, right. Yes, and it also depends upon, like, the platform you choose. If you are choosing BigCommerce, Shopify, WooCommerce, and if you are using your own script and hiring developer for that, because that is continuous process, right? And you
Yep.
have to hire a developer for $1,000 a month. A designer comes in India $500 a month, right? If you are
Mm-hmm.
using Shopify, you are using WooCommerce or BigCommerce, it is different game altogether. You can achieve your break even revenue fast. So you need to figure out what kind of products you are in, or what kind of services you are in, and how can you generate sales fast, and how can you control your expenses in the start,
Mm-hmm.
right? It all
Yeah.
depends, right?
Yep.
So let me check the chat box. Okay, so, like, I have a question, right? I mean, see, in every e-commerce platform, I mean, whether you use WooCommerce, Shopify, BigCommerce, there are two buttons which always confuse newbies, even intermediate e-commerce player also. Those are add to cart and buy now, right?
Ah, yes.
I mean, my question is, Rasi, sometimes you start with one or two product websites,
Yep.
right? Sometimes you have 10 websites. Sometimes you have, oh, sorry, sometimes you have 10 products, and sometimes you have, more than 100 products in your website, right?
Right.
And sometimes if you have only one or two products, right? See, my question is how to decide when to have both the buttons,
Yep.
when to have only single button buy now, and when can you redirect your buy now to directly to checkout.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you miss add to cart, in add to cart option you can at least upsell, cross sell the product,
Right. Yeah.
Your thoughts on it?
This would be a wonderful conversion to test with Google Analytics. Make both buttons and watch which ones people click. If the majority of people are clicking add to cart, then get rid of the other one altogether. But if the majority of people click buy now and only buy one product at a time, then you have to try and figure out, is that because they're confused or because they're only buying one product or they only want the one product? And you can figure that out by looking at what products they're buying. So say you have 5 products and you have buy now buttons. If people are only buying one product, maybe they don't want the other 4 and you shouldn't sell them. But if they spread out that buy now traffic over all 5 of them, then you know that all 5 are viable products, and maybe you stop doing the buy now and use the cart thing so that perhaps they buy 2 products at once. This would be a fairly complicated test, but I think is a very worthwhile one to figure out. You'd have to do multiple tests, trying different scenarios to see what people are buying. But I think it would be very worthwhile.
Right. And can you recommend some plugins like using which we can, increase conversion, like through cross sell, through upsell, or through, any kind of thing?
Yeah. Boy, there are a lot of things you can do. Simply making your website go faster will do it.
Yeah,
There's a very
exactly.
famous Google
Exactly.
research study that
Right.
says that increasing by like even 1/100th of a percent, or I'm sorry, 1/100th of a second will
Wow.
increase conversions, which is incredible.
Mhm.
Cross sells work. Having a like when they're looking at product X, say, hey, you might also want product Y. Um, that really works, especially if you frame it like people who bought this also bought that.
Yeah.
Um, so if you're selling um, swimming toys for like floating things for water, people
Hmm.
who bought this also bought a hand pump.
Yeah, yeah.
Then people are like, oh, I need a hand pump so I don't have to blow this up with my mouth.
Right,
Um,
right.
so those do work. BigCommerce has it built in. WooCommerce has an add-on.
Mhm.
I'm sure Shopify does it. Um, but there are literally thousands of those tricks.
Yeah.
That blog post I mentioned in my talk has
Mhm.
many more ideas than I gave.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe twice as many more. So
Mhm.
I recommend checking that out.
Mhm. And see, tell me one more thing, right?
Hmm.
There are, multiple ways of converting that user, uh, other than, website. Like there could be Facebook store, there could be any a specific group, right? And there could be, email campaigns also. I want to ask you, in the e-commerce space, how important is, email campaigns, post sales, post sales email campaigns? How important is that?
You said post sale, like after the
Yeah,
sale?
post
Yeah,
sale.
very
Yeah,
important.
after the sale.
Yeah,
I
very
mean,
important. Um, Most sales are repeat sales. Most customers are repeat customers.
mhm,
So once somebody buys something, you want to create a relationship with them and make them love you.
mhm,
And sending them an email immediately after sales, say, hey, thanks for shopping. Um, Especially if you're very small and you can make it personal and say, hey, this is not an automated email. I'm really emailing you to thank me because you're my 3rd sale ever and you made me cry with happiness, you know, that kind of thing. But uh, once you get up to scale, if you can send them a 10% discount for the next time they come, as soon as they buy, then they're excited. They want to come back and they want to use that coupon. Um, so I would say post sale email campaigns are very, very important.
Any tools you want to recommend for email campaigning? Like,
Not specifically. When it comes to tools, I'm a big fan of use what you know.
okay,
So if you're already familiar with MailChimp and you love it,
yes,
it would
yes.
take you more time to learn a new tool than it
Uh-huh.
would to leverage MailChimp. Even if another tool might be slightly better, you're gonna
Uh-huh.
because you already know the one, you're gonna get more leverage out of it. Same goes with programming languages. Use the
Yeah,
one
yeah,
you
yeah.
know best. I see we have a question in the Q&A about what platform should you build an e-commerce website on,
Uh-huh.
um, so that it loads fast and works efficiently. And I'm going to say that you can do that on any platform.
Uh-huh.
You can make a terrible website anywhere, and you can make a wonderful website anywhere.
Mhm.
It really depends on your familiarity with the platform and what you're good at. Um, so I recommend using what you're really good at. And if you if you find the need to change for whatever reason, um, learn it slowly. So say you're on Shopify, you want to switch to BigCommerce. Don't just in one day switch 10 stores, because you're not going to understand BigCommerce well enough right away. Put one store in BigCommerce, learn it well, and then gradually move your stores over, so that your knowledge of the platform grows as you're moving in.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, when it comes to tools or programming languages or platforms, I'm a big fan of use what you know, because you're going to get more out of it than using some magic tool that somebody said you should be using.
Yes. Yeah, like just adding to your point, you can use any tool. You see, if you know WooCommerce, you are familiar with WooCommerce, you can use WooCommerce, right? If you have theme, you can build your own script, right? And if you have nothing, you can use BigCommerce, you can use Shopify. I mean, they are
Yes.
easy to use. They are, kind of plug and play kind of thing. And in Shopify, you don't have to worry about even hosting or loading time or so.
Right. What's interesting is uh often the less accessible the platform, the harder it is to break. So let me clarify that. Um, with WooCommerce, you can download any old WordPress theme and install it and make a desperately slow, horrible website.
Yeah,
And it's very easy to do that.
yeah.
With BigCommerce, hosted with the SaaS,
Mhm.
um, you it's much more difficult to make a bad theme. And so if you're concerned about making a bad theme a slow site, use something like BigCommerce or Shopify, because it's more difficult to mess up.
Yeah.
Um, so that's a good first step.
Mhm. And we have another question from Aruvrata. Do you find that planning ahead and promoting products related to upcoming events increase conversions? For example, promoting football ahead of FIFA World Cup.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, and there's a this is a practiced skill you have to learn about how much ahead of time. If you start too early, then people start to forget or they get burned out and they're tired of your message. If you
Yes.
start too late, then you don't get full advantage of the timing. There's a pretty precise time in which you should start. And the people who figure that out are magicians, and you should pay them all the money.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. See, timing is very important. Like Valentine's Day is coming, right?
Yeah.
And to time Valentine's Day sales, you have to start in first week of the January. Sometime,
Yes.
sometime they want to buy products and keep with them.
Yep.
because they don't want last minute, they can they want to keep with them, and so that they can give in those days, I mean, any chocolate day, or teddy day,
Right.
or Valentine's Day. So they need to keep in advance. And you see, in these kind of I mean, events where gifting is important, like Valentine's Day, Mother's
Mhm.
Day, and Father's Day, you need to plan in a way so that you can get more prepaid sales. See, in
Yeah.
country like India, prepaid sales are important because in CODs, where cash on deliveries are there, and I mean, you could face some returns also, right?
Oh
But in
yes.
case of gifting, nobody wants prepaid, right? Yes, yes, of course, and you have to plan in advance. For some festivals, some days you need to start 2 months earlier. In some
Hmm.
cases, you can be 15 or 1 week earlier,
Yeah.
right?
In the US, the most difficult one is New Year because it's so close to Christmas.
Yes, yes.
You can't really start advertising for New Year until after Christmas, and then you have 1 week,
Okay.
and that's it.
Okay. In the week, I mean, in the week time, like from 7 days, which days are good for e-commerce? I mean, on which days people buy the most?
Ah, boy, I don't know that. That's a good question.
See,
Um,
matlab, uh, in my experience, I have seen uh, in India, weekends are good.
okay, yep,
It also depends upon whom you are targeting. If you are targeting housewives, weekdays are fine. If you are
yep,
targeting job seekers or businessmen, it depends upon that. And for US, I don't think like Mondays are good, because in
you
on
know,
Mondays they have heavy workload, I guess, because
yeah,
they enjoy their 2 weekends at fullest.
yeah.
Yeah,
Interesting. It's interesting you say that because I just did a Google search real quick, and it shows
yeah,
that Monday is the most popular, but only by a little bit.
yes, yes,
There isn't any one day that is dramatically higher.
yes, yes. And see, coming back to that email campaign questions, I mean, which is the best? I mean, HTML email or text email?
Uh HTML.
HTML. Okay.
These days, so many people just use Gmail or Hotmail or any of those that HTML is the way to go.
Okay, okay. See, when it comes to e-commerce, okay, uh, see, e-commerce sites are not just another sites or not just another blog. Okay, I mean,
Right.
in e-commerce site, you should have feel of trustworthiness,
Yes.
feel of something like there is some team behind that, there are some humans behind that, right? How to make e-commerce site trustworthy, more trustworthy in this space?
Yeah. Um uh a good way to do it, especially if you're a small store, is to have pictures of the people who work there on the website.
Mhm.
So so you have 5 employees. Put up put up an about page with a staff page, just like you would for like an agency or something, and say, here are the people who work here. And if you do a return, you're going to be talking with Sorab. And if you call in for support, you're going to talk to Jay. Um, and so people know who they're talking to, and they know that it's a real person, and there's accountability. You can call back in and say, hey, yesterday I talked to Jay, and he told me this thing and it was wrong, and now I'm angry. um so putting a face to your store can really really help with authenticity and trust and things like that. um and you can scale that up quite a bit, especially with support. So say you have 25 support staff, and they're all in a room with headsets on, but you can put their pictures up and say, a picture and a first name, because you don't want people to stalk them. You put a picture and a first name, and then people can refer to that person. They say, yesterday I called and I talked to this person, and this is what they told me. And um, I've had it where I've called support and I've said that I talked to so and so yesterday, and they said, "Oh, just a minute, let me go talk to them."
Yeah.
And they walk across the room and they have a conversation with the person I talked to yesterday, and they get on the same page, and that's really cool. It's really
Yeah.
useful.
Yeah.
I like it.
That's very much important. And in my opinion, there are, I think, three kind of persons who starts e-commerce, right?
Uh-huh.
One is like who are into manufacturing, who are selling into offline world, right? And
Yep.
sometimes they start e-commerce saying like, we are already manufacturing product, why not sell it online, right? And other kind of person is somehow their relative, or somehow their friends is manufacturing product, and they seek
Mm-hmm.
help of their technical friend. Why don't you sell my products online and charge me commission or charge me a fee, right?
Sure.
And there is third kind of person who have nothing. Those are confused, right? They know e-commerce is good. They know in after this pandemic, this e-commerce business is going to at such level, and e-commerce is making already a boom, right? For those
Yep.
guys who have nothing, I have a question for you.
Okay.
What niche to choose? What category choose? How to enter?
Oh boy.
What product to sell?
What product to sell? That's difficult because ideally you start with the product. You have something you have made or you can make, um, and that's what you sell. If you're trying to just break into e-commerce like it's the stock market and think, I want to find something to sell,
Yeah.
um, it's a lot more difficult because, but you can do it. You would research what people want. You would try to find out, do people want shirts, or do they want soccer balls, or do they want hair combs? Find out something people need and what they want, and then try to sell that. um yeah, so to your point, I think there are two of those kinds of people who are coming in cold. They're the ones who already have something to sell, and then there's the ones that really have nothing, and they just want to sell something just to make money. um and the easiest is the people who already have something to sell. Maybe they have a brick and mortar store and they've been selling for years now, and they think, I need to get into e-commerce. um but starting from zero, figuring out a product, that's another art altogether. And in fact, if you got really good at figuring out what people want to buy,
Yes.
you could sell that knowledge and never get into e-commerce yourself.
Exactly. Exactly.
So you can say to somebody, hey, you want to get into e-commerce? Go make this product and sell it,
Yeah, yeah,
and it will work. And now you owe me $10,000 because I gave you
yeah,
that
yeah.
idea.
Or give me my royalties for long term.
Yes. Yep.
Right, right, right. Okay. Like we are just about to end. Like, uh, what are your, I mean, last closing remarks? What message you want to give to, new e-commerce players or advanced e-commerce players?
Um, there's a big difference. I learned this the hard way. There's a big difference
Mhm.
between being a good developer who can set up a WooCommerce store perfectly, and being a merchant or entrepreneur who understands e-commerce. I set up an awful lot of e-commerce stores for other people, just following the directions and never deeply understanding e-commerce before I got to BigCommerce. And when I got to BigCommerce, I met all these people who didn't know the first thing about how to build a store, but deeply, deeply understood sales and commerce and entrepreneurship. And there's a big difference. So don't assume that because you are a WordPress developer and you know how to install WooCommerce, that you now know how to run an e-commerce store. You can push all the buttons and, move all the knobs by following the instructions, but that doesn't mean that you understand commerce and how money works and how business works and how taxes work and all of that. So I recommend, if you are looking to get into e-commerce yourself, study the art of e-commerce independent of a platform. Don't study Shopify. Don't study WooCommerce. Don't study BigCommerce. Study online sales. And then you will be able to use any of the tools and do a good job. So that's my advice.
Yeah. So we don't have any more questions. That's all for the day. Thank you so much, Topher, for coming in.
Oh, you're welcome.
And you must be in different time zone. It's morning for you.
Yes, the sun is just starting to come up.
Yeah, good. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you, audience. Siptanji, your concluding remarks for the day.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you, Mr. Christopher, for accepting my invite to address our audience. And thank you very much, Jay, for this very insightful and a very good session on increasing the conversions. So I think I was just thinking what we are having today is basically a positive aspect of COVID. So earlier we had to travel to different cities to attend sessions like this. But because of increase in such webinars and live conferences, Mr. Topher is able to address the audience here remotely from his place. So I think it's a WP Fest is a start we have done, and I think we will continue with it, and we will try to bring in more speakers from different countries to address our audience. And I would like to, and individually, for me, it was not possible to do such extensive exercise on my own. So Jay Paudyal is one of the person who has been he has been supporting a lot in all our community activities. And there are some other people who volunteered for this event, which includes Anuvrata, Ashish Pahwa, Mohammad Athar, Habibur Rahman, Divya Shukla. She was the MC who was addressing earlier. Mizanur Rahman, Dhirendra Sharma, Mr. Lavkesh, Gulshan Kumar, and Ehtisham. And I would also like to thank you, the sponsors, platinum sponsor, VDevs, WP Engine, and flatside.com. And gold sponsors, Urban Skill, Logo.com, Sellify, WP Event Partners, and AI Card. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. And we have some very good sessions scheduled for tomorrow. So I would request everyone to please log in tomorrow also and attend the sessions. Over to you, Jay.
Over to you, Divya. If you are there, you can officially close today's day.
Yeah, hi. So with this, we come to an end of the session today. And we'll be coming up with more interesting sections tomorrow. I think we have much to talk about the business strategy for WordPress consultants and advantages of WordPress static sites and many more like this. So thank you all for staying with us all along today. And thank you, Toffer. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Siptenji, for your presence, for your invaluable presence and audience too.
Yeah.
So let's close for the day and we'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. for the next session. Thank
Bye.
you all.
Namaste.
Thank you.
Guys, the timing for tomorrow is 2 p.m.